What is going on, Yon Nation? Welcome back for another analysis, this time on the incredibly dense official gameplay trailer released at Night City Wire Episode 5 to round off the show. Getting right into the trailer, we have a chaotic scene featuring a very prominent character from the lore, who also appears in 2077 in Rogue, a former solo and character in the attack on Arasaka Towers from Cyberpunk 2020. She has visible wrinkles here, meaning that this is not a flashback scene, which we will see later, and she also has the clavicle augmentation that we've seen from her image in the 2077 lorebook. The only difference I can spot here is some of the facial augmentations that this version of Rogue has. The AV that you're riding in is being hit by a couple of missiles, and as we can see from the first person perspective of V, the player is most likely a corpo judging by the suit. Rogue does have something attached to her feet here, which looks like it could be some sort of boosters or propulsion system, and it seems like they're trying to approach a building, likely that of Arasaka's. The trailer opens up to a nice vantage point of Night City, and peering into the distance, you can see what is likely the city center. 3 aerozups fly ahead, illuminating the skies with spotlights and advertising. At 13 seconds in, we have seen this segment in Japantown, although now it seems like there is a celebration going on due to the fireworks. CDPR has recently tweeted this out with the simple caption "The Parade," and lead quest designer Pavo Sasko has also mentioned that you will soon join the parade in Night City as well. This might be tied to NC's election, which we know is a focal element of the events in 2077. A Network News 54 AV looms above, surveying the area with cameras to get the latest scoop on what's going on around town. We've mentioned this Arasaka fortress suspended in the middle of this area before, and right next door, we can see NPCs on their balconies enjoying the festivities, and as we pan down, we get a better sense of just how many people are crowded in this location. Moving on, we have the Nomad Girl, who now has a name after the most recent roundup of previews. Her name is Panam, and we do a mission with her according to some of the previews, but I won't spoil the story here. There is also an indication that a romance option is viable, but you will have to pick your words wisely in dialogue. Compare this with the Life Path trailer, where we also saw Panam, and it's very evident how each build of the game has built upon the last. And the granular design that is built upon with each successive build is something that really excites me. There's new ads in the back, including the live in concert ad, the clown face on screen, which is likely for Sachisil Machista Dog, as well as a slightly altered Corporate Wars musical ad in the back. At 19 seconds in, we have a prominent Aldecaldos member strumming along on his guitar, who we have seen in the Life Path trailer taking a smoke break in front of 2 Nomad vehicles. Moving into the city, we have Palm Street, which judging by the cleanliness, appears to be one of the wealthier areas of Night City. We have the Tough Morning coffee ad that we've seen before, as well as one for Joe Teal's liquor, with the catchline "Too good to waste." We have swimming in the following scene at either a depth or area where there's a lack of sunlight, or in the nighttime following some markers on the seafloor. These are submerged ruins, and this appears to be a mission in the game as you're following another individual who's in a full scuba suit. 26 seconds in, we see our rocker boy companion Johnny Silverhand overlooking an area. This area does look familiar, as we will see a scene here later on with Silverhand's showdown with Arasaka's weapon of war, Atom Smasher, which is a flashback scene from the pen and paper lore. Next up, we have Misty towering over you in Victor's Ripperdoc clinic, judging by the background. Later on in the trailer, you do tell Victor about the Silverhand chip, and he looks pretty distressed about it, so maybe this is a follow-up scene with Misty leading you out of the room. Misty again looks like Pris from Blade Runner, and she's undergone a very nice visual upgrade over the years. Into the city again, and we have this overgrown park, where people can feel like they're away from the hustle and bustle of the city, without actually being away from the city. This may be an extension of the Memorial Park we've seen snippets of, and if you look in the back, we have the NCART railway weaving through some structures, which is this area from the postcards trailer. The park does seem to have a ton of graffiti on it for Valentinos, meaning that this is likely their territory. At 31 seconds, we're behind the wheel of a luxury hypercar from Rayfield, speeding away on the streets at 109 km per hour. We see a sign for Ellison Drive here and a little Easter egg. These do look like the street signs in Poland, since CDPR is a Polish company. We have a third-person driving scene, where we see an updated look at the bottoms-up ad from the 48-minute demo, as well as an ad for Riot, which is a prominent nightclub in Night City. As we get some air in our fancy yellow hypercar, we pass an auto checker, which is likely a shop that we've seen before, where we will take our vehicles to repair damage, since there is quite the extensive damage system. The player rolls up to Titan Street, where we have the option to take the right road up to Westbrook, or straight through to Watson on the left. Our next scene shows a conversation between Yu, Takamura, and Oda. Again, we've mentioned Oda multiple times in the past as being a bodyguard to the Arasaka family, and he has a history with Takamura as a mentor. We will see Takamura later mentioning revenge. You can see Oda with his mask off here, as well as a timed dialogue sequence which has movement and life path options as well. It seems like we are swaying him to help in whatever our objective is when it comes to Arasaka. We open up to the character creator where it lets you select a body type and also mentions that V's appearance may sometimes affect the behavior of other characters. This is my favorite iteration of the character creator, and on the far left, you can see the preset characters as well as an option to randomize a character. The CC goes through a variety of hairstyles, some of which look pretty odd, as well as beard lengths and facial cyberware. If we're going to talk about details here, we gotta talk about that stray nose hair hanging out of my man's nose. It really doesn't get more realistic than that. An interesting part here is we also have facial scarring and facial tattoos, and of course the gold and silver teeth options. In our next scene, we have braindance technician Judy Alvarez overlooking the city with Silverhand in the back. Judging by the Night City Wire special footage, Johnny is not too trusting of Alvarez, and it seems like she might be trying to use you to get to Tiger Claw's leadership, as evidenced later on. The Mox and the Tiger Claws are enemies ever since the Claws members killed the founding member of the Lizzie's Bar, Elizabeth Lizzie Borden, who was diligent about protecting working women and men. If you want an idea where your apartment is, it's actually in the mega building in the back, if you cross-reference this shot with you opening the blinds looking across at this entrance to the city. At 52 seconds in, we have some Nomad variants of vehicles rolling around in the Badlands, and there are some odd panels off to the right. We can see the custom interiors here, and there's also an international electric panel here for armor integrity analysis. We also know that this is a Thornton vehicle, judging by the logo on the inside. Sandstorms loom in the distance, and yes, there will be storms and weather systems out in the deserts. We also see some vehicles in the foreground with what looks like a tank on the right hand side. We're back in the Aldecaldos camp, and we have Keanu's Archer sports bike in the front, alongside the other bike that we've seen before in various trailers. At 1 minute in, we have Pan Am perched atop a roof overlooking an Aldecaldos camp. We have an Aldecaldos jacket, as well as the Aldecaldos logo on the side of a tanker. Off to the right, we have the infamous fast travel terminal, as well as a sign for shoot and ride on what looks like some sort of moving carnival bus. This fits in with the lore, as many nomads are from circus acts and road shows that congregated with others after the collapse. The Welcome to Night City sign is pretty unflashy in comparison to the actual Night City, and it's propped up in an area where there's dead trees and what looks like a lot of pollution. We move into an oil field with the Petrochem logo on an object to the left, and we can see Johnny Silverhand visit this area later on in the trailer. This is a location where there will be a quest designed by Pavel Sasko. You appear to meet Kerry Uridine at one point, robbing some poor guy heading into the outskirts, and he does have a blue pistol. Weapon skins have been confirmed, with the best example being the camo skins that Militech bodyguards carry. As we approach the border, we see a Chu-2 station in the distance, and 3 ads, one for Combat Cab, one for Bolshevik Vodka, and one for Kang Tao, with the slogan "You Shoot, We Aim." A chopper hangs low to the ground, and we see an ad for Perales, who is a mayoral candidate in Night City. We can see the border more closely with the Biotechnica protein farms off to the right, and Night City peeking through the sun-soaked smog. At 109, we have this NPC in the front that we have seen in numerous times in screenshots and in footage, even meeting up with another candidate for Mayor, Weldon Holt, at some point. He's definitely a bigger character than what it first appears to be. The road in the back is Mbunike Way, named after the former mayor of Night City that we have seen before in the postcards trailer. Police bots are seen in the back protecting an area, and they're using the same rifle as seen in the Xbox footage from the Night City Wire special, as well as in the hands of regular human NCPD officers. We have an NCPD technician working on a laptop, and on the vehicle itself, we have text that says lethal force will be used. We also have everyone's favorite Wednesday night program airing on World News Service. In the next scene, we have 2 businesses including Reverie Courier Services and Wash It Run. On the right, we have the Watson Bridge, which we appear to drive up to in the Xbox footage from the NCW special. In the next scene, we have a shot of Schofield Street with some variations to the alcohol ad that was previously shown. There is a big V in the back, likely meaning this is Valentino's territory, and kids are also pretty prominent on the street here. Moving into a shot of an industrial zone on the outskirts of the city, we have an ad for cybernetic upgrades and a little Ghost in the Shell Easter egg with the typing fingers. Also check out the green Corpo AV to the left. Moving back to Watson, and we've seen a similar shot of this before, but from the underbelly of this road where some of the poor citizens of Watson live. In the back we see an Arasaka truck, and it'll be interesting to see if we can steal corporate land vehicles with a high enough strength or technical ability. At 115, we have an Arasaka ACPA, or Assisted Combat Personnel Armor, protecting what is likely the Arasaka mansion in North Oak, seen in other trailers. We have an Arasaka AV in the back, and we've also seen this lumbering behemoth in the Run the Jewels trailer. We also have this very control-like vault, where the Relic Immortality chip housing Silverhand is likely contained, but there's also a Delamain logo here, which is an AI taxi service in Night City, which is quite odd. At 121 we have the Us Cracks, a pop group sponsored by Kuroshi Optics, collaborating with samurai rocker Kerry Eurodyne in what appears to be a television appearance. Again, love the design of both these rock stars. At 126 we have a repeat scene from the Postcards trailer, this time with audio, but yeah, the media will do anything for ratings, and even more so in 2077. Moving on, we have a shootout in what appears to be Night City Hall, judging by this frame, as a guy in a jacket unloads his pistol into what appears to be a heavily augmented cyberpsycho, who looks exactly like this character from a 2018 screenshot. I'm 100% getting Deckard Blade Runner vibes here, taking names and retiring replicants. At 134 we have the NCPD responding to a threat. This location looks very similar to the landing where Trauma Team lands from the 2018 gameplay demo, and this could potentially be the result of a branching choice, where the NCPD comes in versus Trauma Team. As the NCPD officer comes closer, we see that his shoulder pads are provided by Arasaka. At 136 we have Royce and Dum Dum kicking back in what is either the Maelstrom lair or the Totentans, alongside this female Maelstrommer who has the latest GoPro as an eyeball. We have an Arasaka Corpo drinking out of this classic Blade Runner inspired glass, as an Arasaka device sits on the table. The bouncer of the afterlife is also shown with some branding for Bolshevik vodka on the side of his jacket. He does have augmentations typical of the Animals gang, and members are hired out quite frequently as security. Weldon Holt is seen giving a speech in what appears to be Night City Hall, before we're shown walking into a bloody scene with a Militech rifle in hand. This looks like it could very well be the aftermath of a cyberpsycho rampage. Takamura is shown off next, and check out his model compared to the previous one we've seen. Again, he wants revenge, and we're sitting in Tom's Diner in Watson, which does seem like it's going to be a popular watering hole for V. Moving on, we have V looking down in first person at what looks like the Ripper Doc Clinic with the Constitutional Arms pistol in hand. No subdermal weapon grip on hand yet, meaning this is likely a scene where you're meeting up with Victor for the first time to bump up your specs. At first I didn't think much of this scene, but this actually might be Michiko Sanderson in the background with her husband Mark. Formerly Michiko Arasaka and Kei Arasaka's daughter, she now runs a private investigation firm specializing in cases for celebrities and socially important clients. This might be a bit of a reach, so just keep that in mind. At 206 we have Jackie's apartment. We can side by side this with the scene from a prior trailer to see which one looks better. We break past a barrier to apprehend this 6th Street veteran, who we can see more clearly in some of the Jolly scenes, and has undergone an upgrade in the form of more cybernetics. He has a fairly beefy rifle, and in the back we can see some 6th Streeters, which we will get to a little later on in the trailer. We also do see this rifle in hand a bit later on in the Wraith encampment. Back to the Ripper Doc Clinic, and we have the subdermal weapon grip installation scene from another vantage point, before we see Jackie nail this dude who's running away from us against the dumpster. Jackie's been throwing his weight around ever since the beginning of 2018 in the scav lair. Coming back to this scene, we have a meeting between the 6th Street gang and agents from Chinese mega corporation Kang Tao. The leader has some very unique cranial augmentations as we hold our pistol to his head, and we end up backing out of there with our pal Jackie, with a better look at the Kang Tao branding on some of the agents. Next we have a racing scene versus hologram cars, which might be for the driving mechanic tutorial. At 222 we have Adam Smasher looking pretty beefy again, and his eyes are lit up with the red lights unlike the first time we saw him. Again, I'll put this side by side with the model from Night City Wire episode 1, but I'd say there's more granular detail on this model, as well as slightly better looking lighting. Skipping some repeat scenes that we've already talked about countless times, we have the updated look to this scene where you're hacking the Netwatch van from the deep dive. Take a look at this side by side with the old build. Moving on, we meet up with a new Ripper Doc by the name of Robert. Now, not sure why I love this segment so much, but I do, and this is the logo for Ripper Docs on the map. Moving into my favorite section of the trailer, we have the cyberware menu. First, we have the main body components that you can augment. We have 3 available slots for the frontal cortex, 1 for the ocular system, 3 for the circulatory system, 2 for the immune system, 2 for the nervous system, 3 for this system which I can't pronounce, 1 for the operating system, 2 for the skeletal system, and 1 for the arms, hands, and legs. The one in the circulatory system does appear to be the blood pump, as noted by Night City Life in their XXL preview. We also have the subdermal grip, the mantis blades, titanium bones for increasing carrying capacity by 20%, and the Raven Mark IV cyberdeck. This legendary operating system is a big tool in the Netrunner's arsenal. It enables quick hacks, which do have different memory values to actuate. This cyberdeck has 10 units of RAM, which will allow you to use a fair amount of low-cost quick hacks in succession. This chip also increases the time it takes another Netrunner to hack you by 100%, increases the spread distance by 60%, and increases cyberdeck RAM recovery by 6 units per minute. Alongside that, we have what kinds of device hacks we can actually use with this OS. Also note how there are mod slots for the OS and the arms for fragments, which will increase the lethality of each. We also see reinforced joints at the bottom, judging by this Tools of Destruction trailer, but it's also half cut off, so it's hard to tell. On the next page, we have the location of the cyberdeck on your body, as well as some replacements, including another legendary cyberdeck with only 2 mod slots. Next up, we have a Militech Crusher in hand, as well as a Gorilla Arm strength augmentations as we progress through an arcade or casino. The narrator mentions hundreds of potential augmentations and weapons, before showing a lineup of cyber arms, with one that looks like the micro missile launcher, Johnny's iconic silver arm, as well as a variety of others. Notice how these augmentations are hung in a room that looks very similar to V's weapon locker in his or her apartment. We even have the samurai poster in there as well. Moving on, we have a scene in the animal's lair as we ambush a gang's member with the mantis blades, before we get into the door and turret ripping animations, which we first saw in the deep dive. Graphics wise, this is much improved. Heading off to a stealth takedown, we see V's neon shoe from first person. Now oddly enough, there is a QR code inside the tongue. This is likely a high strength build as we smash a heavily fortified Arasaka agent into the ground, crushing his skull. At 251, we're presented with a new attribute screen with reflexes, body, technical ability, intelligence, and cool being presented here. Yes, these will affect dialogue, and we see technical ability further branches into crafting and engineering. Technical ability, according to the description, determines how much of a tech specialist you are. It improves your proficiency in crafting items, especially weapons, as well as your proficiency with tech weapons and effectiveness against drones, mechs, and robots in combat. Each level increases your armor by 5%. And we also have reflexes, which are branched off into handguns, blades, and rifles. Reflexes will determine your reaction speed. They directly affect your evasion, with each level increasing your chance to avoid enemies' attacks by 1%. Reflexes also increase crit chance by 1%, and mantis blade damage by 3% per level. This affects your overall proficiency with rifles, pistols, and revolvers. Your level in reflexes also slightly affects how quickly you gain experience for related skills. We also have our perk tree here for rifles, handguns, and blades. At the top of the screen, we have the inventory, map, journal, and crafting sections, and we also have the skill progression bar for rifles at the bottom left. These are unlocks and rewards based on how frequently you use rifles. There are around 18 perks here, with the first one that we can see clearly being Bullseye, which is a passive level 1 perk that increases rifle damage while aiming by 10%. We move to handguns, which has around 20 perks, and blades with 16. The cursor scrubs over Flight of the Sparrow, which is a passive perk, maxed out at level 2, which reduces the stamina cost of all attacks with blades by 50%. Slow and Steady is shown next, which at level 1 increases armor by 15% when moving, and at level 2 increases armor by 30% when moving. Offensive Defensive means that defensive attacks with blades deal 200% more damage. In our next scene, we have the big beefy rifle as mentioned earlier. Not sure if it's the lighting or not, but the rocket arm does also have a gold tinge to it, meaning it is likely more powerful, and it seems to fire substantially quicker than the base model. At 3 minutes in, we have our trusty Malorian Arms revolver starting to pop some heads of what appears to be members of the Animals gang in a nightclub. There is graffiti with the text "Corpo Thieves Must Die," and the logo of the bar is a very large red crown. On the top right, we have an Animals leader wielding a hammer, meaning that not only Sasquatch has an industrial hammer in her arsenal. In the back, we have an ad for the Midnight Lady accessory kits, which we have seen before in the form of the nipple tasers. We have more varieties here, and it seems like you can order Joy Toys with the augmentations you prefer, since this does look like it may be a Vendit. Moving into our next scene, we narrowly avoid this projectile from a group of police bots out in the Badlands that appear to be protecting this area. You score a headshot before shooting an explosive barrel in the background to send not only the bots flying, but also a package with Militech branding on it, which is likely the package that they were protecting. We also have a stealth section as you sneak up on a maelstrommer wearing what is likely some stolen Trauma Team gear. Into the next scene we go as we're in the Animals lair, utilizing our hacking skills to manipulate devices, in this case camera 11 in the back entrance. Hacking camera takes 1.5 seconds and doesn't take that much cyberdeck RAM, only using 3 of the 4 slots we currently have available. We also have the ability to turn off the camera in the back entrance with 2 units, or to distract enemies again with 2 units. Execute, change target, and tagging are options on the bottom. The remote deactivation skill is explained as manipulating basic device functions, such as opening and closing doors, or activating and deactivating cameras. At 3:04, we're at the Sunstone Suite, waiting for the Flathead to finish what is likely an infiltration mission. We have T-Bug on the comms at the top, and a bar that's filling up, either indicating how long it will take the bot to do what it needs to do, or a warning bar for getting spotted if the player is actually in control of the bot at this moment. You seem to be able to zoom in and out and scan, meaning you are in control of the camera. There are some corpos sitting around, with one mentioning that, quote, "People will start saying I've lost control of Watson, district I'm from." Now Arasaka does have a vice-like grip over Watson and has bled most of the other corporations dry there. At 3:08, we chain our abilities with some rifle fire to take out the first 2 members of the Animals gang, uploading a quick hack to the 3rd member, and finishing it off with a missile to the back. During the quick hack segment, we see the name Kwachi Oliha Gunner, who is wanted for blackmail and first-degree murder. He's weak to thermal and electric damage, and resistant to poison damage, and the suicide quick hack takes a whopping 13 units of cyberdeck RAM to use. We also have Reboot Optics, which effectively works like a flashbang, and Breach Protocol has other options here. We see the effects of the suicide hack in the subsequent shot. At 3:21, we see Silverhand opening the door here with the iconic Malorian Arms 3516 in hand. This was one of the most powerful handguns in 2020, crafted by renowned gunsmith Aaron Malor. We see a Militech chopper taking off, with a new ad in the back, before we see female V use her personal link to jack into a device containing what is likely the Silverhand biochip. Jackie pulls out the case housing the chip, and we get a glimpse of the amazing rain effects on the outside, and just how high up we are. Stealing the chip, we have a change to this scene. In the prior trailer, it was a Trauma Team AV that was chasing us, but this has now been changed to an Arasaka AV. We can see the first person perspective of female V falling, and her sleeves do match the Corpo Life Path outfit. Jackie opens the case with the biochip in it and holds it up. Somehow the player ends up slotting the chip into our head instead of Jackie, so maybe he just chickens out. We've seen the relic up close in the gig trailer, but we also have some additional text here with the biological and synthetic material benefits. The trailer moves on to show you learning about the presence of Silverhand on the chip, which we can compare to a similar scene in the past. At 3:40, we're back to a flashback concert featuring Johnny Silverhand. And as much as the crowd population is nice to see here, there are a ton of NPC repeats, especially the woman in the black, and even the animations are the exact same. Hopefully this is not indicative of the final version. Our Ripper Doc looks visibly perturbed by the fact that you have Silverhand in your head, which means he's likely not able to take it out without catastrophic damage. We have a scene where V is holding some of his dog tags, which might mean Silverhand is explaining some of his backstory to the player. By the way, if you want to dive into more of the lore, there is a lore explained playlist on the channel. At 3:51, we're peppering away at a rooftop filled with Arasaka personnel and turrets, before we see the pocket nuke in the hands of Silverhand, which was likely the one detonated in 2023 during the fall of the Arasaka Towers. This is again likely a flashback sequence. We finish off a Cyber Psycho in what appears to be Wraith territory as Takamura looks on, before we get another glimpse of the chip heist scene with Jackie with highly armored AVs flooding the airspace. Hanako Arasaka is seen walking into a boardroom. We know this is Hanako because Philip Weber has actually confirmed so on Twitter, and she is the youngest child of Saburos. Arasaka troopers are shown off with the ones on the right holding a weapon that we've seen before in the 2077 lorebook, and that we will see later on. At 4 minutes in, we have another flashback scene from the pen and paper lore, this time a showdown between Adam Smasher and Johnny Silverhand. Silverhand's demise was actually at the hands of an auto shotgun, so for now I believe this turret is a placeholder weapon. Smasher does look a bit more human here versus in 2077, where there's little to no semblance of that. Next we have the in-game sequence where you're awakened after being dumped in a landfill on the fringe of the city, which we first saw in CGI format in 2019. Oddly enough, in the next scene, Deshawn can be seen limping, as Takamura looks on, meaning that both you and Deshawn have survived, if this is in fact the scene that follows the prior one. We can be seen chatting to Takamura in first person, as all dialogue will remain locked to this perspective, with Silverhand in the background lounging around. We do see a corpo option here, and the idea of first person only cutscenes is really growing on me the more I see it. At 4:15, we have a meeting with the Tiger Claws higher-ups, including their boss, who's seated on the far right. We have this guy on the left enjoying a brain dance via wireless headset known as a Wreath, with Silverhand in the back merely observing. Going back to the Xbox footage, Silverhand suggests that the Mox might be using you to take out the Tiger Claws, a gang that they're not too fond of based on a messy history, and so far, this is looking like it might be the case. You have a time sequence at the top, with the ability to attack at any moment. At 4:17, we put on a VR headset in a training sequence at the beginning of the game to get us acclimatized to the shooting mechanics of Cyberpunk. This actually looks like the same gear as being used by the kid in the 2018 E3 demo. You can see some of my artwork on the table, before some Valentino holograms pop up for us to again practice our skills. At 4:21, we're thrown back into the ultra clean UI for Cyberpunk. In terms of weaponry, we have a Dara revolver, which we've just recently picked up with a DPS of 317. We have our trusty double-barreled shotgun with a DPS of 290, and a weapon that looks very similar to that of the Arasaka troopers shown before. We can see the attachments on the bottom right, as well as the mod slots for each in the top left. Checking out the clothing options, we have 2 slots for the head, which has a silhouette of a hat and a mask. Upper body also takes 2 layers, and the lower body features pants as well as shoes. The special section is reserved for full outfits, which could be something like a full corporate suit. Under the quick access menu, we have our healing inhalers and grenades, as well as our cyber deck and how many mod slots it has off to the right. This is where you will go to equip daemons or quick hacks. Moving on, we have some clothing options here, and I have to say these look amazing. This is ordered in terms of rarity, and there are mod slots on the epic options at the top. On the player itself, the trailer cycles from a couple corporate designs with different color schemes, to more punky street kid styles, to luxurious more armored variants, as well as a samurai jacket variant with some additional bling. V most likely has mantis blades due to his arm cutouts. There's also a rack of clothing options, which seems like it might be in our apartment. We get onto a Yaiba without the stickers and decals, which might mean there are variants of sports bikes as well, before we see the player jamming out with Carrie and friends. Not sure if this is a flashback sequence, but on the left we can see Silverhand's arm having a weird effect on the player. At 426 we have everyone's favorite scene, getting cozy with Judy. I'll go ahead and play this in slow motion for the Judy simps out there. In our next scene we have what looks like our first time arriving at our apartment in Watson. It seems like V has just scored some coin, or just simply doesn't have that many personal items. We shoot off to Pacifica where we see V riding a roller coaster, which is probably a side activity, and it seems like Playland by the Sea is still functioning in Pacifica, despite it being one of the poorer areas in the city. We have the Type 66 speeding away in a subsequent shot, before we see what looks like a server room. Some heavy firepower is being rained down upon you, although the source is blocked out, and as you look down holding your budget arms Carnage, you can see that you're not alone. At 441 we again see Johnny Silverhand layered upon the player's hand, something that we did not see in the postcards trailer where this scene was first shown off. We're seeing skinny dipping with Kerry Uridine based off of his tattoos, as we move into what is likely going to be everyone's favorite scene, getting jumped by a cyber psycho that we offed earlier in the trailer. Those are the substantial details. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the analysis and you want more, there will be a link in the pinned comment. As always, thanks for watching, and for more Cyberpunk, join Neon Nation by subscribing to the Neon Arcade.